Hi, this is Ken and Michelle Bass.
And you're listening to the Resilient Parenting Podcast.
Hello there.
Hello.
We are back with another episode of our podcast.
Did we ever leave?
We're still in the same house.
It has been a little strange this year. We've been trying to do it every other week. So, yeah, the week off is kind of strange, but yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Since I start out a lot of the episodes with a very bad dad joke.
Yeah, and then you continue it on throughout the episode.
Yeah, but I'm kind of saving people every other week. Then
you're welcome. So what do you have for us? I see. Hold on.
Yeah.
The page that you're getting this joke from, is it titled Groaners?
It might be. I don't know.
You have been warned.
Could be loners. I don't know.
Well, they can't talk to us then.
Okay,
we
here
have
we
nothing
go.
to loan.
Since this is the Resilient Parenting Podcast,
Yes.
I thought I would do something in regards to parenting.
That's probably a good idea.
Did you know that a stork is strong enough to carry a little baby? You probably knew that, right?
Oh, that's how that works?
Yeah, the stork carries a little baby.
Man, I did all the work.
Yeah. Well, bigger babies require a crane. A crane. Yeah.
I get it.
Okay.
I can see why it's called a groaner.
Okay, here we go. This is a question for you.
Okay.
What is the most groundbreaking invention ever? Any idea? The most groundbreaking invention ever.
The phone.
The shovel.
The shovel.
The shovel.
I need a shovel every time I'm with this guy.
Okay, it's getting too deep. We're moving on.
Well, on that note.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we do go deep, but not in that way. So really excited to introduce our next guest. But that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
You'll have to wait and see who it is.
But you said that's all you're going to say.
Well, I'm a woman. I can change my mind.
Don't I know it?
Well, we are happy to introduce our next guest. And this particular guest has many hats. So let's start with the name Terry Scraggins, a veteran, a foster care alumni, a therapist, a licensed master social worker, a racer in many marathons, a board of directors. I mean, like, I could keep going. Our whole episode, Terry, could just be all of the hats that you currently wear.
Terry, what do you do?
What don't I do? And when do I sleep? I feel like that was like the start of the question. I do my best.
So we just figured out that I have known you since 2009, 2010, around there. We were sitting next to each other, you, me, and Jennifer. Shout out to Jennifer, in a psychology on adolescence class, and we were all sweating together. Little did we know that our lives would continue to intersect in so many ways, but I was super excited to meet you then, and I'm really happy to have you on our podcast today. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome. And actually, as you were sharing that, I was thinking, I'm like, did I just randomly stop going one day? Because I feel like that was around the time that I was still figuring my things out. So it's possible I just like ghosted y'all. I don't remember, to be honest.
Can I be honest with you? I'm pretty sure you and Jennifer both did it. Because one day you guys were just not there anymore. Y'all left me. It was a really hard class, guys, okay? And we still are in contact with each other through that. We got it through it, right? So
Yes, indeed.
you have, your story is really amazing, just like everything that you've experienced, where you're at now. I really would like to just let you just take it away and share your story with folks, and then we can ask questions along the way. But let I'm just so excited for everyone to get to know you. So, what would you say to folks that are listening? Who are you?
I think, I guess, in like a Spark Notes version of my life and my journey, um, born and raised in Boise, Idaho, spent like the first couple of years of life in Marsing. Not much has changed. I lived with my mom until I was about 4, and then lived with a family member until I was about 12. Entered foster care here in Idaho in right before my 13th birthday in 2002, I believe, and then experienced a range of homes. You know, I actually spoke last week at the Foster Care Awareness Days. I was the keynote, and as I was preparing for that presentation, I was like, it's wild how our brains work. You know, as a therapist, I work with clients on a daily basis, and there continue to be memories that like I have repressed or like kind of backed out of. And I was thinking like, okay, so from the age of like birth or 3-3ish until like 18, I like lived in over 20 different homes. And so that very much I would say shaped who I am. But yeah, in care, finally, right before 18th birthday, grandparents got licensed. I lived with them and aged out of care in their home. Joined, applied early decision to the University of Puget Sound. I was so excited when I toured the campus because I was like, this is basically Harry Potter. And then after I went there for a year, I was like, oh yeah, I've just been ignoring all these things. It won't catch up to me. It caught up to me. And then kind of took some time to be intentional in what my healing looked like, and joined the Navy. Joined the Navy in like 2012 or 2013. I was a damage controlman. It's funny because as I look back now, I think about all of the different professional endeavors that I've got to be a part of. And, you know, in one of my interviews, I was talking about, they're like, so what makes you feel like you're prepared for this position? And I'm like, because literally my whole life I have had positions where I'm like running into fires where people are running out, both literally and figuratively. My job in the Navy was damage control, so fire, flooding, structural damage, toxic gas, stuff like that. Served my term in the military, got out and was like, okay, I think I'm ready to try the school thing again. Went back to Boise State and pursued and finished my degree in social work. Worked for the state. As a foster alum, I wanted to experience and see what it was like on the other side of the table, because there is a lot of red tape when you're trying to follow rules and make sure that things are statutorily correct. And once I was done with that, realized I wanted to go back and get my master's, transitioned to a director role at Boise State and worked there for about a year and a half, and then transitioned into therapy. I never said I would be a therapist in my whole life. I was like, I don't want that responsibility. At the end of the day, I'm like, this is people's lives and livelihood. Like, I don't, and so fast forward to a year and a half as I'm currently in this role. And I very much am like, I'm good at it. And like my clients tell me on the regular, it is very heavy work, but it's like the small wins and seeing like the changes. Small, sometimes they're small, sometimes they're significant, but it also, living in Nampa and working in Boise, yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at a mirror, like sometimes when I'm in session. So fast forward to now, doing too much always, trying to figure out how to do less, but that's kind of like a version of my story that is truncated.
I was just listening to somebody talking about interviewing people the other day, and they said normally when you ask somebody, who are you? They don't answer with who they are, they answer with who they were. And I started thinking about that. I mean, you don't look at the present, then I started realizing that everything you were has made you what you are. And you have so much going into that. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I believe even some of the things sucked, but I don't think I would be where I am today without the experiences that I have had and that I've learned from.
You know, when I was in graduate school, one of the things for my research project was outcomes of LGBTQI youth in foster care versus those that weren't. And I can't remember if we talked or not, but I feel like we did because I was trying to get research. Can you tell a little bit about that story and also like how all of the different identities intersected?
Yeah, I would say it gets more interesting as more identities kind of are interwoven. You know, I interned in DC in the summer of 2018 and actually drafted a policy report that we presented to Congress and White House staff around the needs of LGBTQIA plus folks. And um, it was an interesting time to be interning in 2018. That's all that I'll say about that. But I do think that it was it felt very empowering. Like in the amount of hours I spent drafting that policy report and the amount of edits, it was unreal. But I learned, and I'm sure the percentage has gone up now, but at the time, 1 in 4 youth in care identified LGBTQIA plus. They experienced placement changes at, I think it was almost a double rate in comparison to folks who are not within the LGBTQIA plus community. Mental health outcomes have had a tendency to be poorer without consistent intervention. But yeah, it was an experience, and it felt, you know, something someone said to me once was, because I've always had a difficult time advocating for myself, and they said, you know, something that helps me is I think about like, maybe it's not me I'm advocating for, maybe it's some of like the identities that I hold. And so that is something that I took to heart. And it's definitely influenced how I show up. And I feel like nobody should have to fight just to exist. Like, I understand we can have differences, but in the reality of it, like how someone identifies, who does that harm? Like truly. That's one thing I think I really struggle with when people are not sensitive to differences. Like differences is what makes us more connected and more understanding of different life experiences. I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. And then some. Absolutely. So you have spent a lot of your adult life really advocating for change, for sharing knowledge with folks, whether it be like how you were the keynote speaker at the advocacy days. And in March, you're going to be a part of a panel that's going to be presenting at the Strengthening Families Institute through the Idaho Children's Trust Fund. I know that you just shared with in Washington, D.C., that you've just been involved in a lot of things. And what are some things that you think are still missing or that you wish that people knew?
Yeah, some things that I think are missing or that I wish people knew around like advocacy and supporting youth, particularly youth with various like identities and intersections is, I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a second, and then I'll get right off quickly. But I think something that stands out to me is the fact that, you know, when I have experience as, I'm not representing them, but a former state employee working in child welfare. I'm speaking from my lived experience, and I remember going into care, and I remember like experiences that I had in certain foster homes just around like a hunch that I might be within the LGBTQI plus community. And that really would impact, and I found that it impacted my relationships with the placements that I was in. And so that was something that even at like, you know, my late 30s that I still grapple with and try to figure out and challenge those intrusive thoughts. You know, when someone goes into the foster care system, like foster care equals trauma. Like there is no way around it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's because of their identity, but there is like statistics show that it is a higher rate of folks that come into care because of their identity. But I just struggle with, like, how can we say that we want to bring people into our home that have experienced like hardships in their background and not be like inclusive? And I know that that is a word that feels like it's on fire right now, but like inclusive means that you're mindful of all different walks of life. And so I really struggle with, I think that there has been some progress, and so I would like to speak to that and name that, but it's just, I don't understand a lot of times why, like, we can still maybe be like, why can't we lead with curiosity? Why can't we try to understand it? I think that that is something that I still see, and I think that it depends on the region that we're in, right? I think that some areas are much more lead much more with curiosity, but it just, that I think is the biggest thing. Like, if you want to help, you also have to realize, even if we expand it outside of LGBTQI plus communities, like, there are things that foster parents are not going to understand when they are caring for youth that they have known for a day or a month or 3 months. And so how do we show up, even if we don't understand it, how do we show up in a way that is trauma informed and supportive, to make sure that if maybe we don't know the things, we can identify a resource that can help a youth navigate? Because it's already hard enough, especially in today's day and age, navigating the world, and as your brain is growing and you're developing, and then you add trauma into that and being removed from your family into that, it's all interconnected. And so we need to see it as interconnected, not as siloed and individual things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those that places that are supposed to basically be safe and supportive can be creating even more drama. I mean, trauma. And
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. What would you say to foster parents right now? Folks that are in a foster parent role, or maybe someone who's interested in becoming a foster parent?
Yeah, are you asking specifically to supporting LGBTQ plus youth, or just in general? Because I think I could answer both, but I want to answer both. Yeah. Because I think
Because we just
really,
never
yeah,
know. We just never know. Like when we have, and that's when I was doing licensing, I always said, we never know. So you have to be open and curious and accepting of anyone who comes through that door, because you just never know. And what is the messaging that comes across if it's, well, I'll take care of this one, but not this one? For both
yeah,
kids, what is the messaging?
yeah. I think just in general, I think, you know, how can we be, something that stands out to me is like, how can we be trauma informed in every sense of the word? You know, I think that something that has stood out to me in the various leadership positions I've held and the various advocacy work that I've done is like, when we show up for lack of better words, the little guy, we often are showing up for a wider umbrella of folks. So if we are operating in a sense that I want to make sure that I am thinking about every detail, whether that be, you know, showing someone your home so that they understand and are able to calm their nervous system around what the layout of the home is, showing them where they're going to sleep. When they share things, because oftentimes when youth are placed in homes, it takes time. It's kind of like any other relationship where there's like a honeymoon phase where everything's great. And then as you start to get more comfortable, you notice that maybe certain behaviors or trust is built. So more direct statements are made. How can you show up in a way that even if it's something you're not familiar with or you don't understand, that you can be curious and ask like curious questions rather than place judgment? Because it could be a youth in your home. This could be something they're sharing with you in any intersection or identity that they may have. You might be the first person that they are telling. So how can we show up in a way that is like intentional and kind, even if we don't get it? Um, how can we ask the question more, what happened to you, rather than what's wrong with you? And I don't think that many times that's something that is like directly said, but I think it's implied through actions and through decisions that are made. But those are the things I think that stick out to me the most.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. When you were saying that, I was thinking, "God, I would want that. If I was going someplace new and I was going to stay there, um, you would want to know like where everything is and like what are the rules and what's the expectation and to help your own nervous system and to feel comfortable. So it makes sense, just for a moment, just putting yourself in their shoes. Um, for someone who's thinking about being a foster parent, what would what do you think makes a good foster parent?
Having very important and healthy boundaries is the first thing that comes to mind. And I know that might seem like a very small thing, but just being open and communicative. Like, we all have things that maybe, well, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of the invisible backpack, but essentially it's like, what are the things that we carry that nobody else can see? And so how can we show up in a way that we can be open and honest and build trust? And I think that that really is a multi-pronged thing, because we're also talking about providers, right? Like, how can providers show up in a way that is intentional? So having boundaries, because if you don't have boundaries, then people will walk all over you in any regard of life. I think stating what you need and making sure that you're practicing self-care, because I think we all as a collective culture have gotten worse at that. And so especially when you are bringing a child who has experienced a separation from their family into your home, you need to be like on that. And the only other thing that I think really kind of like stands out to me is recognizing that nobody is perfect. And as a therapist, I have learned that, and as a therapist and a human that's experienced a lot of messed up things that I've somehow overcame, it's not about being perfect. It's about, what does the repair work? Arguments are going to happen. Disagreements are going to happen. Challenges are going to happen. How do we do the important repair work to restore any trust or any difficult situations that may arise?
Now, when you're talking about boundaries, do they often get confused with walls? Does that cause
Oh,
a problem?
for sure. It makes me think about, um, I heard or saw this reel about a week ago that was like, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that it is trauma or that it is harmful. And that like speaks to me, because it kind of goes back to what you said around the confusion of like boundaries meaning walls. So if we are uncomfortable as foster parents, and obviously I'm not one right now, but like one day, I see that in my future one day, we need to be aware of our own triggers. We need to be aware of our own things. And yes, we can't, there's sometimes I would say it's not realistic to know that you're going to be able to know all your triggers. But what do you need to be able to show up for that youth, because that youth is counting on you in a system where they often feel like they don't have control, they don't have power. So how can you help restore some of that by offering choices? How can you advocate for them? And how can you show up in a way that is not guarded and is authentic? Because I'll tell you right now, I knew immediately when I would go into a home, if like, you learn to be hypervigilant and you learn how to read the room and you learn how to stay safe. If you are not being authentic to youth, or if you are not allowing yourself to be vulnerable when you're expecting them to be vulnerable, it's not going to end well. It's going to likely end in a blowout or additional behaviors that if you're not in tune, you're going to try and think, what's going on?
Mhm. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, yes. Something that you had said before that I want to just touch on too is it sounds like in two different times you also were in a kinship family. you were raised by
Yeah.
your grandparents, and how, there's been a big push for trying to keep kids with their family and kinship families, and you had the experience of both. And what was, if it's okay to share, what would you say are some of your takeaways from all of that?
Oh, how long do we have? I'll try to keep it succinct. 3 points. I'll give myself 3 points to think about. The first being that biological family or fictive kin, which is like someone that you have a significant relationship with, that doesn't equal healthy. It might equal, like, on a piece of paper, safe, but it doesn't equal healthy. And so, and having that wide variety of caregivers in my upbringing, I look back and, like, I could tell you even the respite, like, placements that I had when I had a foster parent going out of town and I was with, like, a rando, like someone obviously who passed a background check and all the things, but like someone that I'm like, this is short term, I'm not going to be here long, not going to really like connect or attach. So when I think about the differences in like my experience, both having kinship care and foster care, in some ways it felt more comfortable, in the nature of I didn't have to build this like relationship with someone. I knew them. Was there good and bad? There is in every relationship, but not having to build that trust, not necessarily having to figure out what the rules are, not necessarily trying to figure out what is the diet or like the dietary like expectations within the family. I think that was something that was helpful, but there are, I can think of two on the top of my head, foster placements that I had to this day. They made a significant impact on me. And, growing up in Idaho as a queer person of color and growing up and being raised by primarily a white family, like that was something that, when I entered care, the state, and I'm also like a Casey kid, so I was a part of the Casey Family Program. Like, there was just something significant about being placed with a family that was Black. Like, in my family, I was always not always, generally speaking, the only person of color that either wasn't white passing or that wasn't white. And so the state was like, okay, well, you need to like maybe understand a little bit about your culture. And, at the time, I very much was like, no, this is like, I was raised by white folks. Like, this is what I'm comfortable with. But as I look back on it, the foster placements that I was in the longest were like strong Black women, and like they made a significant impact in like how I show up. And even though some of the rules they had I absolutely despised, I do think that it helped me. I think that the structure helped me, and I think that learning about my culture helped me. So yeah, I think I just trailed off and went into a rabbit hole, but I hope I answered the question.
No, this is great. This is great. And there is, there has been, I remember a lot of talk about trying to really be intentional about where you're placing kids, and to be able to share that culture, and or at least connect them to people who, and to their culture, because there is a lot of loss, as just especially with moving and losing friends and culture, and just so many things. What would you say to professionals that are working with families and that are and youth? Because you have the experience of playing both roles.
Yeah, totally. First and foremost, I would say thank you for doing God's work. As as one of my intern supervisors said to me when I was an intern to other folks that worked in child welfare, because it is like something that I look back on both on the side of client and on the side of professional is like not only do I believe that social work is underappreciated and underrepresented and all of the things, but then you add like another layer to it when you work for like the state or you work for child and family services. Like something that I felt the entire 2 years that I worked there was like you're always either not doing enough or doing too much, depending on who's looking at you. And then you have to focus on the laws and making sure that you're doing things in accordance with the laws. And the thing about child welfare, which often I think in the realm of social work is like and I hate that I'm equating this to economics, but I'm going to do it. If the demand goes up, that doesn't mean that the supply goes up. That means that the stress increases. So, and the caseloads are higher and the hours are longer. And so hats off to professionals. Now, on a more constructive side, I would say I think it would be like the same thing that I would tell foster parents is like, make sure you're taking care of yourself, making sure that you are asserting boundaries and like standing by that, because that's how burnout happens. That's why, when I started, I remember them saying, yeah, the general like time frame of being a child welfare worker on average nationally, at least when I was one, 2 years. Guess how long I lasted? 2 years, almost to the date. It is exhausting, it is hard work, and it really takes a special person. And so make sure you're taking care of yourself, make sure you are sticking by your boundaries, make sure that you find ways to like enjoy life, because it can be really like tiring and exhausting. Yeah, 100%.
Okay. With all the hats you wear, all the things you do, all this you've been talking about, one question was in the back of my mind the whole time. Why do you run marathons?
Because I like pain. No. I mean, actually, that is a lie. I'm the person that will pass out because of pain. So I want to make that very clear. But no, out of all of the 455,221 things I do, running is the only thing that offers me solitude. And it's funny, actually. This, I think, it's wild to me. I think it goes full circle. Back when I was a kid, before I entered care, my aunt, the person that I lived with for 8 years, would put me in all these fun runs. She was the kind of person that was like, keep you busy, you'll stay out of trouble. And for the most part, that worked. But so she put me in basketball, football, fun runs. I think the only sport that I really wanted to do that we never talked about was soccer. Like even in my late 30s, I'm like, I still want to try and join like a league, and I might one day. But yeah, running, when it comes to running, she put me in all of these fun runs. I don't know if y'all remember the Capitol Classic or the
Yes.
Harrison Classic, like all of those 1 milers. And I think it was just a delayed response, because fast forward to 2018 when I was like, I'm going to start running again. And my partner at the time was like, well, you might want to like make sure you're going to run before you buy shoes. And then I was like, oh, we're doing it. So I went to the store, I bought 2 pairs of running shoes and then started running. And then it became my therapy. I mean, it's not, as a therapist, I would say it's not meant to replace a licensed professional when you're struggling or navigating hard things. And then as I did more research about, there are 13 different chemicals that release in your brain if you're a long distance runner. And so the runner's high, that is clinically and scientifically a thing. So running for me has just been my escape. And for a while there, I had to be careful, because there was a time where I was running 30 to 45 miles a week. And 20 of those miles would be on a Sunday. There was one time I ran from Federal Way to Gowan to the Greenbelt and all the way back up to Latah and Americana. And that was 20 something miles. But I had to be careful, because there was a point where I was and my therapist actually said this at the time, was are you running from something? And the answer to that question was yes. So But no, it just has always been it has been like the one thing that has helped me de-stress. Like I know I've reached that point when I'm running and I'm like, maybe y'all might throw up about this, but like when I'm maybe like 6 or 7 miles in, and like my brain just, I know I've reached that moment when my brain is just like, thoughts are like freely flowing, and it's been cathartic. So
And that's goes back to what you're talking about. Take care of yourselves while you're taking care of others.
the number of times, both clinically and just like as a friend, that I have used that airplane oxygen mask analogy is so incredibly important. And that's why I'm like, every therapist needs a therapist, and everyone needs to be focusing on how they can improve. I think that we often, as a culture, we often tout self-care and self-maintenance, and we glorify it. But I think that people don't do it. We need to do it.
So just do it. Why do I feel like we're like a Nike commercial? Is it Nike?
Do it.
Do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? This has been inspiring. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not gonna run. I I thought about it. You got me kind of excited, but then you said it'd take 6 miles. Then you feel, and I'm
For
like,
me,
for me, if I'm running, you better run too, because something's chasing me. But in all in all seriousness, I really, really, I've admired you for a really long time. When you were just like the fellow student next to me, trying to understand what we were trying to understand, and you had a special spirit about you then that I just immediately connected to, and you continue to inspire others, and so I just really, really am thankful for you, and I know our community is better because of you. So thank you.
thank you. Because I one thing that my therapist said to me one time. Let's talk about that real quick. Um, I am trying to learn to accept compliments. That's something like, to me, I am very much the person that's like, I do these things because I'm supposed to do these things. I don't do these things for clout. I don't do these things to make myself look good. I like acknowledgement, but like I also don't really like attention. And so yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm just trying to do better and accept it, because in my head I'm like, I was supposed to be doing this from the beginning. So now that I'm in this place, and I think that the reason I do it is because like where I'm at, and I've said this, I probably sound like a broken record, but like statistically I shouldn't be where I am today. And I think that more youth and more people that have had to navigate and learn how to be resilient should be able to be in a place that I am. And yeah, that's kind of, it's just, I think that's my drive. I think that's why I continue to stay engaged.
I heart you.
Thank you so much, Terry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much as well.
This podcast is brought to you by the Idaho Children's Trust Fund.